Out of the Ordinary Insights, brought to you by Investec Specialist Bank.
Well, welcome back to Captains of Industry, where we're speaking to Louis van der Walt, who's the Chief Executive of the Atterbury Property Group. Louis, besides being the Chief Executive of Atterbury, you also head up a company, Bonhaven, which is a beef and cattle producing as well as breeding company. Just exactly how's that going for you? Because it's completely different compared to heading up a property group.
I think everybody that's as busy as the people at Atterbury, you need something to offload over the weekends. And I've started farming of cattle in sort of the mid-90s, and we've got a cattle operation. I'm in partnership with John Engelbrecht, the proprietor of Rust en Vrede, the winemaker. We've got a beef operation in the Kalahari. We produce wieners. We've got a feedlot just outside Pretoria where we do about 30,000 cattle or head of cattle during a year. And then we've got couple of studs where we produce Angus, Hereford, Brahman. So that's all in the cattle business. And then parallel to that, I've got a game business with a partner, Tinus van der Berg, in the Kam de Boer, where we farm with scarce game. You know, we have roan, sable, buffalo, rhinoceros, and I'm part of the trophy breeders group where we've got an auction once a year where we sell these scarce game.
That's definitely a lot different compared to property. But what might be some of the challenges that you've met up with? We know that poultry producers are struggling at the moment with chicken dumping from the likes of Brazil as well as from Europe, and as well as grain prices, which are affecting their production prices and profit margins. But for buffalo producers and beef, it doesn't seem as though you guys have that problem.
Yeah, I think it's slightly different. If you take let's take the game industry at the moment, you know, it's not the normal consumers that is your client. You know, it's other breeders of scarce species, and I think the biggest challenge there is, and what I've seen over the last couple of years, is that the people are prepared in the game industry to pay for prime genetics. You know, if you've got a buffalo bull that's got 45 inches or more horns, they're prepared to pay for that. So there's a lot of players in the game industry which have that quality of animals, but that is the big difference in let's say you farm with chicken. You know, it's a mass producing thing. In the game industry, it's those guys who have the best genetics, who can produce the biggest, let's say, horn size in buffaloes or in sable. Those are the guys that's getting the prices, and that's the challenge, is to find the right bull or the right cow or the right animal to produce those sort of genetics, and that's the biggest challenge, but it's also not a nice challenge to have.
I can imagine. And how would you say our cow producing or farming facilities compare to the rest of the continent?
Well, I think South Africa is one of the only countries in the world where you can privately own game. You know, in most of the other countries it's part of bigger national parks. So I think we're almost exclusive, us in Namibia, there in the production of game. And I think what is nice as well is if you take all over Africa, the biggest animals have been shot out. You know, if the trophy hunting, if you look at the trophies of sable or buffalo and how it have become smaller over the last 50, 100 years due to the hunting of those genetics. Now what have happened with the game farming, what makes it much nicer is the guys are now again breeding for that. So you can see the size of the trophies is increasing again. And I think South Africa is almost the only country in the world that is doing that at the moment. So we're putting back the genetics which have been hunted over the last 100 years.
I can tell you're very passionate about it. But Louis, what would you say it takes to be a chief executive for future leaders who might be out there? You head up 2 companies. What's the key qualities that one needs?
I think, yeah, it's a I won't say a loaded question, but it's a interesting question. I think the one thing that Atterbury does different is that, you know, the people are very passionate about the company and they all got ownership. And I think that to us is the key at Atterbury, what will make the big difference. From day one, the shareholding in Atterbury was shared by the people working there, by the employees, and that's what makes them passionate. So they enjoy what they do, but they also see the rewards. You know, I've always said I hate getting a guy and paying him a top salary, because he's a pure almost a soldier of fortune. You know, when he gets a higher offer, he will move on. If you've got ownership, you don't move on. You know, it's your company and the people there. It's never necessary to go to the people and see, are they working and at what time are they working and what is their leave requirement, because it's their own company. They understand that and they work as if it's their own. And I think that's what makes the big difference at Atterbury, the passion and the ownership.
Not only that, but you also started out fairly young. At the age of 16, you won a award, a Young Entrepreneurs Award from the Beeld newspaper as well as the Johannesburg Chamber of Commerce. So you got an early start.
Well, I had to, if you want to get forward in life, you have to start early, and you wake up early, and you work hard. And I think it was it was a passion of mine. Other people have other passions. Mine was also always to try and find how can I make more money, and not necessarily for the money. It's just it's an interesting concept. I remember I was still a young boy when I ever walked into a store or a cafe. I was thinking, what would I do different to make more money? And it was almost like a game I played, and always trying to. When I meet somebody, I always want to know, what are you doing? What's your business? How does it work? How do you make the money? And since I was small, that was sort of the way I approached things, and that just led further. I mean, the whole Atterbury, the way we've structured the company, is also entrepreneurship. The guys there, each one can make his own calls, make his own decisions, and from a young age, the guys that we have there, that's the shareholders. There's a lot of them that's still under 30 years old, but they make the call. They sit in a meeting, and every decision is a business decision, and they don't have to check with the others. They've got the authority to make that, and I think it's important that from a young age you give people the authority to. Obviously, they have to earn that, but if they do earn it, then you give them the authority to make those calls.
But what was the driver for you and the motivation that led you to becoming such an inquisitive teenager who became a booming entrepreneur at your age?
I'm not sure. I wasn't good at a lot of other things. I wasn't a top sportsman, or even academically I wasn't great, but this was one area which I liked. So. And I think that was the reason. The more you delved into that, the more interesting it gets, and you start reading up, and you start looking around, and that was just my interest, that was my passion.
And what are your thoughts on the importance of education? You yourself are a qualified chartered accountant. You also have your CIMA qualification, even though you ditched that and moved on to becoming an entrepreneur, but obviously it must have played some kind of role in your leadership position right now.
I think the one thing, especially at the early age, it gives you credibility. If you go to a bank and you fresh out of university and you got a CA, then at least they listen to you. If you weren't there, they wouldn't have listened to you. So I think from a credibility point of view, I think that added a lot of benefit. But I'm always one that prefer common sense to a varsity degree. If we employ people at Atterbury, that to me is by far the biggest, almost the strength of Atterbury, is that the people there, none of them is let's say top students. But all of them have common sense, and I always prefer that. I think you need enough education to be able to see the opportunities, but then the common sense kicks in, and that's what's most important to us.
Louis, when you wake up in the morning, what's a typical day like, and maybe the biggest challenge of your day?
In our company, unfortunately in the beginning you do everything. When it's a small company, I remember when we started, you have to do the leasing yourself of a property, you have to find them, the rezoning, the project management of that. Nowadays, as the company have grown, I think my day is to sort out problems. That's what you do. I mean, there's enough people now that does the rest, and you only hear of something, it becomes an issue, it becomes a problem. So people ask me what do I do in a day to day, and I say to them, I sort out problems. Whenever something goes wrong, that's when you have to be there and make the call, or lead in a way and say, well, I think we should do it this way or that way. And I think that's 90% of my day is that. And then I think the other thing is to find opportunities. As the company grows, a lot of people approach you with projects, with a piece of land, with an idea. And after 20 years of experience, you've got the ability to see through that and see what is an opportunity worth taking or worth pursuing, and what rather to leave. The 80-20 principle is very important. You can't look at everything. So you need that 20 years of experience to see what is that 20% of the opportunities that will give you 80% of the income, and focus on that and not look at all of them. And I think that's sort of the role that I have to play in the company now, is there's various opportunities, but to identify 2 or 3 and tell the people, let's pursue them, because they're the ones that will bring in the money. That and sorting out problems.
And how would you describe your leadership style?
Sure. No, I think...
You're not a bully.
No, I'm not a bully. No, I think I'm a very informal, I hope I'm a good leader. I'm not sure. I think if you ask the company, they will tell you differently, because I think I'm the one that's been criticized in the company the most. Whenever I do something, there's 5 people that say, no, we can't do it this way, we can't do it that way. But I think that's the style. We talk a lot about the different ventures that we enter into, and I think, I like getting the opinion of a lot of people that I appreciate. You know, there's a couple of people that have been with me in the company for 10, 15 years, and we think alike, but they all have a very strong opinion. And whenever we pursue something new, we discuss it at length, you know, and after those discussions, you know, we make a call to go in that direction. So I think, you know, I'm not sure what the English word is, this mededelend, you know, we interact a lot, and I think that's the way that I try to lead.
Louis, it's quite obvious that you're very passionate about both projects that you're working on, whether it's the beef and cattle producing or property. But what kind of legacy do you hope that you'll leave behind once you take a step back from leading both companies?
I think there's two things. You know, being in property, I think it's important. We always try to spend a bit more. You know, you will see that the developments that we undertake, because we keep them and we know they will be there in the future as well, we prepare to spend a bit more money and make it more nice. It's not only for the money, it's to leave something there. I mean, the Mall of Africa is a perfect example. I had a huge argument with our quantity surveyor on how much money are we going to spend on that mall. And in a company, we've made the decision. We're rather going to spend more and opt for a slightly lower return, but it will be something that nobody has seen in South Africa. And I think that's the way we've approached the company and all the projects we do. And I think in the long run, it benefits us. You know, it is just a higher quality development. I think that's on the one side. And then think on the other side, what is important is you want to empower a lot of people around you. You know, we've got a bursary scheme where we give bursaries to Afrikaans people that need education, but that haven't got the money for that. I mean, that's a passion of mine. And even in the company, I mean, the empowerment in the company of the people that come there that basically come fresh out of university or that haven't got the skill, haven't got the money yet, and by giving them shareholding and by, you know, see the way they've grown over the years. And I think that's sort of the legacy, is to empower a lot of people around you, both in the company and outside, and leave something behind for them. I think that's what drives the whole thing.
Louis, just before we close off with, if you could go back to your 16-year-old self and give them some kind of words of advice, what would they be?
I think the one thing that I've learned is that if you want to do a deal, you have to be able, especially when you're 16 years old and you've got nothing, able to do a deal, you have to be able to put yourself in somebody else's shoes. If you negotiate with something, and I always say that to the people in the company, you must first listen what the other guy wants out of the deal. And that's the reason why we do successful deals. You don't bully your way into a deal. You first sit with someone, whether you're 16, whether you're 50, whether you're poor, whether you're rich. I think if you want to do a successful deal, you have to put yourself in someone else's shoes, understand these problems, and sort that out for him. And once you've done that, then you propose the deal. And that's the way we always do our deals. We try, the client to us is everything. And you know, if you have to convince a guy to pay a higher rent or to come into one of your buildings, you first sort out the issues to him. You don't go in and say, well, this is the rent we want and it's not negotiable. You understand what is his issues, what is his problems, you solve that. And once you've done that, then there's a trust relationship, and then you do the deal, then you get out of it what you want. And I think that's the way we approach it in Atterbury. We first try and understand what is the need out there, we address that, and with that, then we get what we want out of it.
Louis van der Walt, Chief Executive of the Atterbury Group, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks a lot.
Well, that's where we leave it for today. Do join us again when we profile another captain of industry.